Um, so yeah, thanks everyone for being here today. I want to start with introductions. I'm Tom O'Neill, Management Liability and Cyber Coverage Specialist with Fred C. Church. So I'll kind of be our host today, and I'll be hosting our guest Brian Hogley of Side Channel Security. And I'm just going to read a little bit of your profile if you don't mind,
No, please.
Brian, to introduce you. So Brian's the managing partner and founder of Side Channel and Real CISO. He's been driving security programs for 2 decades and brings true practitioner's approach to the industry. He's led programs for the DoD, Pentagon, intelligence community, Fortune 500 companies, and many others. Brian's also a contributing author for the latest book from Wiley, Cybersecurity Risk Management, Mastering the Fundamental Using NIST Cybersecurity Framework. And lastly, Brian's a professor at Boston College. So we really appreciate Brian being our guest today in the first installment of our 4-part cybersecurity webinar series. Brian was also nice enough to host us today. So the Fred C. Church Risk Management webinar series is looking pretty slick to start off the series for 2022. So thanks, Brian, for being here and for hosting me.
No, thanks for coming out. We're in my studio. I have a professional studio at my house where I do a number of webinars. I do talks. I taught my courses at Boston College from this room. I do outreach with clients, and it's great to be back. Actually, not just in the studio, but in the studio with someone and being able to go through this. So I've got a light board. I've got some cool things that we'll be able to use to hopefully help facilitate the conversation around cybersecurity. And everything you said about me, all accurate. So I won't go into anything else about me, but yes, no, great to be here. And I really thank you so much to Fred C. Church and Tom for putting this together.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So a bit of housekeeping. Like I said, this is the first installment of the Fred C. Church risk management webinar series. So, we'll be coming each quarter with more materials for you. And in addition to being the first risk management part, this is part 1 of our 4-part cybersecurity series, from which I'm calling cybersecurity claims from preparation to remediation. So really, this 30-minute per episode webinar series is meant to show you what it's like to go through a claim. And today we're going to be talking about preparation. So what you can do to prepare your organization before that incident happens. A bit more housekeeping. So like Brian said, we do have the chat up. So please feel free to put your questions in there. And if you haven't signed up for the other 3 parts of our webinar series, please do that. There's the opportunity to do that in the original invitation that you received. So we'll be bringing a lot of good stuff in the next 3 webinar series episodes as well. So kind of jumping right into it, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
In our 2021 cybersecurity webinar, we talked a lot about the security implementations that organizations can add to their network security to help prepare, because of course, the securities that you have help prepare your organization for the inevitable attack. Today, we're going to talk about incident response plans and really talk about what is an incident response plan, how you can create one, who needs to be involved at your organization to create one. But before we jump into that, in terms of security implementations, I mean, there's so many now that are being recommended by insurance carriers, which, a lot of organizations weren't familiar with maybe a year ago or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
From where you sit, can you talk about some of the key security implementations that you think are important for our clients and the community to be thinking about and really be looking into maybe adding to their security?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm gonna draw on here, and I'll answer all the questions of how I make this possible later, or I'll just link it down below. So you obviously want to start with an assessment of your organization. You want to inventory your environment. You want to know what you have to. You can't defend what you don't know exists, right? So if you don't know something exists in your environment, how do you know how to protect it? You need to write policies. There's a lot of things that you need to do that let me tell you, make really good sense when you are building an information security program. But there are, I would say, 3 things that you can tactically start implementing, knowing that you're going to need it anyway, that are probably going to benefit you and your organization now. All right. So the first one is enable multi-factor authentication. Okay. 2-factor authentication, whatever it is. Everybody has one of these or a phone. Okay. There's no reason that your organization shouldn't have MFA or something like that enabled for you to access email, access your VPN, remotely access any part of your organization. Okay. Number one, Microsoft will tell you 80% of issues that they see, that they trace back to why there was a compromise or breach, is due to the misappropriation of access centered around administrative credentials, administrative use. It's primarily because there's a lack of multi-factor authentication. Using username and passwords doesn't work anymore. The second one I would say is your email security. Okay, the number one vehicle for attacks actually is delivered through phishing, malicious links, or email is a huge vehicle, huge vehicle, right? We all live inside of our inboxes. It's our main methods of communication. In fact, sometimes we have parts of our organizations that authorize thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right, of wires or ACHs or anything just via an email. This happens, and there's compromise and fraud that happens because of this. So looking at an email security solution is key. The third one is looking at some type of 24/7 endpoint detection and response functionality. Okay. Now this is, everyone has a laptop, everybody has a device. Right here, we're talking about having some type of a software, much better than antivirus, that allows you or a 24/7 operation to monitor what's going on with those devices, determine if things are going bad, and shut it down. So yes, I'm going to catch a lot of heat from my peers that I'm getting right into the tactical things that you should go do. But, my company, and I've been consulting for a long time, works with mid-market, small businesses, and we will do an assessment, and we will always come back to, these seem to be the 3 things that should be at the top of the list for you to be implementing. And again, there are a lot of other things to go do. There are policies that you need. There are backup and recovery operations that need to be implemented. There's personnel that need to be identified and resourced and appropriately trained. I get all that. But when you really want Brian's honest, hey, what are 3 things that I can go do today without even me looking at your organization? It's MFA, email security, and some type of 24/7 monitoring on endpoints.
Absolutely. And I like how MFA made the list at number 1 there, because that is without a doubt the number 1 security control that the insurance companies are looking to see that you have in place as they review your cyber application. Mm-hmm. So it's critical. I know we have a lot of folks on the call or on the webinar today who are from educational institutions, and of course, multi-factor authentication for students is a major challenge and a whole kind of separate topic. But the MFA it is such a key control because it seems to be the number 1 thing to keep the bad guys out.
Well, it is. So again, usernames and passwords by themselves, those days are gone. Okay. You need to have another sort of factor, right? So something. It's something that something you are, or something that you have. Those are the 3 factors to go off of. Marcia actually asks a great question. Do you mean MFA to log on to email every time? Yes. Now, these MFA solutions can allow you to store or basically cache that it's you. The solutions out now don't require you to click a button and put in a PIN every single time you log in, but every time you log on from a new device or a new location, right? And that's what we're talking about here. So say, Tom, your username is Tom at Fred C Church, and your password is unfortunately password. Okay, you can log in from your machine where you usually log in with Tom and password. I can log in from my house with Tom and password. Somebody sitting over on the other side of the world can log into your account with Tom and password. Okay. If you have MFA, you log in from home. The MFA solutions are smart enough. They're structured in a way now that you log in from home, it knows you're logging in from home, it knows your laptop. It doesn't have to prompt you every time. But the second that I or somebody on the other side of the world attempts to go do, use Tom and password, now I'm being prompted, hey, well, that's great. The username and password were correct. Give us your second form of authentication. That's what we're talking about here. So again, where we can make a frictionless, usage and betterment of security, we want to, but we do have to realize that, there will be some hurdles that will be put in place, but they're really for the overall greater good of your security.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes the most challenging part can be just committing to making that first step to putting it in place.
Exactly.
So in addition to MFA, email security, EDR, incident response plans are kind of a crucial part of your organization's network security. And that's really what we want to get into with today's topic. It's absolutely a question that the insurance companies are asking on their application. It's absolutely something that somebody like Brian is recommending to his clients. So maybe you have an incident response plan, but you haven't taken it off the shelf and dusted it off in quite some time, or maybe you need to completely start from scratch. So we want to talk about what is an incident response plan. So that's my first question, Brian. Yeah. What is an incident response plan?
An incident response plan is basically your plan to respond to an incident. Now, I know that sounds super simple, but maybe let's figure out what is an incident first, okay? Here's a timeline, okay? Here, we will say, is where the bad thing happened, okay? This is, I like shapes and figures, okay? This is where we say boom happened. We are left of boom, we are right of boom, okay? You want to be building an incident response plan, obviously not after the incident has happened. You want to be building this way left of boom, okay? You want to be there figuring out what is going on or what could go on when you have an incident. Now, what are you doing and what are you building into that plan, okay? First, this is actually, if you break it down to people, process, and technology, and this just seems to be a great triad, but if you look at people, okay, who's going to be in the team? Who's going to be in the firefight? Who's going to be involved when an incident happens? Okay, as much as I spell and draw on this thing, I don't have the greatest handwriting. I'm sorry, and I still take my time to draw or to spell everything out. What are the processes that you're going to have to go through? Okay, and then what tech are you going to be able to use in order to actually get through the incident? An incident response plan should do a couple of key things. It should give the authority to the person who's going to basically quarterback or oversee the incident response itself, okay? That's important because when suddenly the bad thing happens and no one has that title, you're going to have a lot of people going, well, are you in charge? Am I in charge? Who's in charge? Nobody knows, right? You need to have someone who can immediately take control of the situation, and it's better to have that determined way left of boom. Okay, so Tom, you're going to be the incident response commander. Your job is going to be to call the shots as far as how we're going to deal with the incident when we have one. That means you will communicate to stakeholders, you will brief the CEO, the board, whoever it is. Like that will all be laid out. In fact, that should be laid out. What is Tom allowed to go talk to? Like, who are you going to talk to? Are there certain things that you go discuss? Are there certain things that you maybe need to talk with your general counsel first before you discuss things? This becomes very, very important in publicly traded companies and larger organizations. But smaller organizations, it's just as important. You want to have somebody else who is as independent in thinking, and usually having a legal person in that role who you can kind of bounce ideas off of and kind of say, hey, is this really as bad as we think it is? Or was this just one instance? And you need someone to be able to talk to. If you're a small enough shop and you're the solo practitioner, I'm sorry, you're going to go it alone. But here's kind of why you're here and what you're learning about. So first, having an incident response commander. Second, who are going to be the doers? If you're calling the shots on what needs to get done, someone has to be doing, right? Actually doing response. That response could be public relations, right? So I like to see your IR lead, okay, working with somebody in PR or communications, okay, someone in legal, someone in HR, okay, and then obviously your IT or your security group, Okay. This is important. This is like your top level team, right? PR, legal, HR. They're going to help you at the corporate sense, right? Even in schools and whatnot. Maybe it's your administrative staff, your faculty, your superintendent, right? You need to have that. This is not just an IT issue. Don't go into these thinking, oh, IT is going to solve this. This is all with IT. No, somebody's going to have to communicate to stakeholders, employees, students, families,
Yep.
right? Outside personnel. You're going to have to eventually say, look, this happened. We need to tell you about it. And you need to work with legal to figure out when is the appropriate time to tell those people about it. The worst thing you can do is say too soon, oh, we had an incident impacting everybody, and then come to realize later, actually, it wasn't as bad as we thought. Actually, in fact, it wasn't anything that we thought.
Right.
We thought it was an incident. So this is where having that good relationship with legal comes in as an incident response lead to be able to determine when do we talk about this, right? And that's the kind of thing that you want your legal team, your outside counsel to really be kind of owning. When is the appropriate time for us to, send up the balloon, if you will, tell other parties, while you, the incident response commander, are leading and overseeing the rest of the actual recovery efforts. So the people, component is very important. The process is, this is where training comes in. And this is where, once you've built an incident response plan, you can start doing tabletop exercises, practice runs, if you will, right? We call them TTXs in the military and in the cyber field. How would you respond, right? Say you have a ransomware incident. Say you have a business email compromise. Say somebody stole a laptop. These are all very relative and very real situations that can happen that could impact you. They all have different responses. The processes that you develop are going to be different for each one. You need to practice all of those. So having those processes defined. Actually, I think here it's great. John, you actually asked that same question as I'm talking about it. Thank you. Do you need a separate incident response plan for different types of incidents? You need an overall incident response plan, but you need different scenario type plans that can be kind of operated on a tactical level. So come up with the different scenarios, how you would respond to those scenarios, focusing on your processes and the technology used for each. But you do need one overarching incident response plan, okay? The last one is the technology. And here, again, back to like that third thing that I said everyone needs. How can you respond? If you don't have any type of EDR or any other type of ability to remotely manage all of your solutions, assets in the environment, you're up for a long night. Okay, you're going to be manually going into each of these devices, pulling them away from people, hopefully giving them new ones if you have them on hand. The ability with an EDR solution is to kind of surgically cut out, destroy, contain, quarantine, and eradicate the actual issue that's going on an endpoint. So, figuring out all of these components, that's what goes into IRPs. There's a lot, right? We're not going to go through it in a half an hour. I spend a semester long with master's level students at Boston College when I'm teaching that on just incident response as a whole, and we only spend about 2 weeks on the actual IRP. That's not even enough time. So there's quite a bit that goes into it. But the biggest things are determine who your people are, determine what kind of scenarios are most likely going to impact you, figure out what technology you're going to leverage, and then start testing it. That's the biggest thing. The worst case scenario you can be in is something goes boom and you're dealing with an incident. And the first time you're actually cracking open your incident response plan is when you need it. You don't want that. You want to train your muscle memory as far left and as many times left of boom, because time is of the essence during this right here. You need to be able to react very quickly, restore known good operations very quickly. And if you're trying to figure out how to do that for the first time while it's happening, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah. I know, Brian, you've told me about experiences that you've had with clients doing tabletop exercises. And, there are situations where you begin the process and then you find out that somebody who needs to be in the room wasn't even invited to the meeting.
Yes. Yeah. These are great times during TTXs to figure out things like that. Why wasn't Sally here? She has the authority to make that decision that we needed. Why was Bob's team here for the entire meeting? He didn't do anything. In fact, we don't actually need them, right? You learn quite a bit. And that goes to not just your internal employees, but your external stakeholders. If you're relying on your 24/7 monitoring capabilities from an outside third party solution provider, invite them into the tabletops, work them into your incident response plans. Do not call them the first time and make them aware of the fact that you were in an incident and they are part of your plan when you are in an incident. They should be part of that, and they want to be too. Really, these security providers, it might cost you a couple hours worth of consulting time. Maybe they throw it in for free, but it's going to make them look good. It's going to make you look better as a customer if you're all working together on the team. So bring them in, invite them in, work them into your plan. The big takeaway is like, just don't surprise people or organizations that you yourself think, oh, I'm going to depend on these folks. Don't surprise them that you were depending on them when you suddenly now need to depend on them. Try to bring them in as left as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like this diagram here, right and left of Boom, because, as the insurance broker, we get involved right at this point, usually. Right at Boom is usually where, our clients, they call Fred C. Church. We help them report the claim to the carrier. That's a really important service that we provide is, our claims advocacy and our assistance in helping our clients both report and manage the claims process. Of course, we can also be a part of this left of Boom. We can be a part of your incident response plan too. As you test it, call up, if at a certain point in your incident response plan, you'll get to the point where you need to make that phone call because you've determined that, yes, we actually do need to file an insurance claim for this. And I was in a meeting last week with a producer and a client, and he made the comment, like, every once in a while he'll get a phone call from one of his clients, and they're just saying, "Hey, we're just testing our plan," and he says, "Great, I'm glad you called me."
That's awesome.
So yeah, definitely encourage, like, the insurance kicks off here, but we can be a part of your incident response plan as well.
Yeah, there's nothing lost on preparation ever. I've done a number of tabletops from small 10-person businesses with just VC funding behind them, all the way up to multi-billion-dollar organizations. And where possible and when we can, we invite the insurance broker, sometimes even the carrier, if they're large enough, right, into the tabletop so that the rest of the organization understands, well, would this scenario be covered? How would this scenario be covered? What exactly is covered, right? And just a funny little story. We had a very large organization go through one of these, and I was kind of given a birdie told me, my client told me that he knew that the CFO was immediately just going to go to insurance for certain things, if not everything. He was just going to go, oh, well, the insurance is going to cover it. And the reality is that we had to walk through when and what and how to engage the insurance. He just assumed, oh, I have this coverage, I'm just going to call my broker, and boom. Yes, you have that access, but you need to be able to articulate, why are you calling them? What are you calling them about? What do you already know? There's certain things that you're just not going to pick up the phone and be like, all right, I know everything because you just called me.
Right.
The client has to come armed to the conversation with, well, this is what happened. This is what we're doing about it. This is what I need next. Boom, boom, boom. So having them as part of the TTX, having a good relationship with your broker prior to actually needing to execute on a claim is very, very important and very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for our clients, for people listening in today who maybe haven't started this process yet, it maybe can seem a bit daunting. How do we get started? Are there templates out there? Like, maybe they're not prepared to do this themselves. Like, where do they start?
So there are a number of great solutions that are out there. It's kind of like doing your taxes, right? You can download the Excel spreadsheet from the IRS and do it yourself. You can go use TurboTax. You can pay a lot of money to an insurance provider. To a tax provider to do them for you. There's a variety of ways, and it just kind of depends on what kind of buyer you are, what the level of threat is, what your comfort level is in doing this yourself. So SANS has a number of great capabilities, and that's SANS. Okay, these folks have a number of great solutions that are out there, things in which to start from. Okay, to be able to go use. I would also say if you look up anything by NIST, okay? Tom mentioned I recently wrote a book on the NIST cybersecurity framework. NIST has a number of solutions out there. NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're a US government agency that makes a lot of capabilities available for free to the public. They have a number of templates and resources available. My organization, actually, I'll just kind of speak to this, and I know a lot of my competitors and such out there are doing the same thing. we actually have a template that we use that we consider an 80% solution. And because that last 20% is what the client really makes up. And we like to use the same one because we know we've tested it across all 50 of our clients. We've seen it in action, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not going to say that all my clients have never had an issue. They have. What I've been, and they're lucky and happy and satisfied about is we got them through what they needed to, minimized damage, and because bad things happen. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they don't, right? So we have some great solutions that are out there. And then lastly, you've got some, you can basically have one custom made, right? You can engage with an organization and have something really tailor made from the ground up. But I don't think you need that. These solutions are good to start with, getting some consultants or team to help work with you to kind of shape it so it works for you. The worst thing that you can probably do beyond just not having one at all is just having a template and not reading it and just kind of saying, oh, I have one, check the box.
Yeah.
You really got to kind of make it work for you. Just put a little bit of time in there. It makes the world a difference if you actually, attempt to build these things to work for you and your organization. You could adopt one from a peer. Maybe you have a great relationship with a larger customer or supplier or somebody else in your sector, but change it so it works for you. Don't just find and replace their company name with yours and call it a day.
Yeah.
But this is not a real, IRPs are not something that, are real business differentiators. There might be some things in there that are very important and proprietary or maybe private to another company, but they could strip that out. But the mechanics of how this works, it's the same really through and through.
Yeah. It's just, it can help give you the confidence that you know what to do when the boom happens. Right. And as we watch the news today, I think preparation is something that we're all kind of thinking about. So Brian, you just mentioned, and we're getting on time here, and I do want to look at some questions, but so you talked about Side Channel. That's obviously that's your company, Side Channel. In addition to being an author and a pretty cool YouTube channel, what you're doing day in day out is these cybersecurity services. So in addition to doing tabletop exercises, designing IRPs, can you tell us a little bit more about Side Channel?
Yeah, we built a company and focus on the mid-market and small businesses. I've been the CISO for a Fortune 500, actually an insurance carrier. I led the program at the Pentagon, so I've worked at large scale. And the thing is, I've always looked at the mid-market and smaller businesses as what the majority of America actually relies on, and larger organizations rely on. There are only 2,000 companies in the Fortune 2000. Okay. That means that there's a ton of other organizations out there, and that's where we focus. So, our big focus is centered on building information security programs, providing a fractionalized CISO into those organizations. That's a chief information security officer. And it comes, and our hiring and our entire company is built on former chief information security officers. I think I'm the only person doing that. I have 30 people, that work for us, supporting over 50 different clients and organizations. And we do it with people who have, no kidding, been there, done that, have been chief information security officers or CISOs at larger organizations who now want to focus on the mid-market and small businesses. And the reason this is great for us and our people is because we know that those clients, you will actually listen to us. You will, you genuinely want to make a change in your security posture, and we can see you change that security posture in weeks and months versus the larger enterprises most of us used to work at. It would take quarters and years. And that just gets kind of professionally draining after a while to not see what you're trying to build actually take shape. So working with smaller organizations is just professionally more fulfilling for us. And I think it's just an area that really, really needs it given today's climate, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's you could say the same about Fred C. Church and insurance. We also serve that same group of clients. So I want to thank you again, but maybe how are we doing for questions?
So I think we answered a number of them, but Robert here asks us, ask me actually, so he's going to ask you, Tom, to ask me, comment some practical ways to roll out MFA to students, maybe specifically younger students. Yeah, this is great. So it is obviously a lot easier for older people, adults, to be able to adopt MFA because, again, if they have a phone, right, it's going to be easier to put MFA on that phone. Younger students, it is going to be a little bit more difficult. I think the ways to be able to do that are potentially with either fobs, the old school RSA keys, had the little digit, potentially phones. I mean, I don't personally agree with it, but you see more and more younger students, younger people, even younger people. I'm not just talking teenagers, like, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds with phones. Is that something that can, be used? Yes, because you can put that type of MFA solution on there that enables them. But there has to be something beyond just a username and password. The other way to think about, if you've got really, really young folks and you need them to log on to resources, is try to figure out how to segment the access to those. Like if you're regionally situated as a school and no one should be logging in from outside of your region, you can put some basic, it's not foolproof, but you can put some basic blocks in saying, look, no one outside of, the state of Illinois, like we're a school in Southern Illinois, no one outside of this area should be logging into Jimmy's, email or solution, right? So it's called geo-blocking, right? So you can do that. You can potentially put in some type of password managers, right? Maybe mom and dad have the password and it's a crazy long 16-character one, and unfortunately that's what's going to be used. You also see inside of browsers now the ability to save those and use those as password managers. So there's some solutions that are available. It is going to become more difficult. I'm not going to try to paint it be better than it is. It's going to be more difficult with younger students. Sanjay asked examples of endpoint monitoring. So I like solutions that are true. We're vendor agnostic, but I will say there are solutions that we see that work. So CrowdStrike, SentinelOne are both really great in this space. Getting an MSSP or a managed security service provider who can monitor it, manage it for you. Smaller scale, think Sophos, even Trend Micro has a solution that are decent for endpoint. And there's new players that are coming out, but I like established players for this space just because I've seen them work.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a solution that you can't question. You need to know it works because that's what you're expecting out of it. So Those are some good ones. So thanks, Sanjay. That's a great question. I don't think I saw anything else.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great and a great way to kind of wrap it up. So once again, Brian, I really want to thank you for joining the series and kicking off 2022 with our risk management webinar series. So if anybody has any additional questions, reach out to myself, reach out to Marcy, and we'll be happy to get back to you, put you in touch with Brian if that's something that you're interested in. And
you can follow me actually if you want to, hashtag CISOLife, CISOLIFE. You can basically use that anywhere and you'll find me, find Side Channel. You can find the YouTube show that I run. It's got a number of different videos. It's all for free. Talks through a number of different things, some novice, some expert. I'll let you decide where your comfort level is, but thanks again for having me on. I love talking about this stuff. Obviously, I built a room to be able to discuss this stuff and hopefully put it out there for everyone. So see everyone thank us, Jeanette, Erica, Jake, Brian, Michael, Dustin, Leslie. Thank you, everybody. We had 105 people out here today. And good luck with the rest of the series, Tom.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. All right. I gotta